I envision a show like Arc, and I always have. I've been lucky, and I can, in my head, I'm thinking, well, we should, sort of start out rocking, and then in the middle, kind of swoop down and give them something intimate, and then end up rocking, I guess. So it's a U curve, let's say, and then if there's too much of anything, be it, because there's some spoken word stuff with the guitar that underpins, I wouldn't do 2 or 3 of those in a row. So the pacing is always, how do we entertain? The first things that really hit me, like I was a big Who fan, early on with Keith Moon and James Brown. So there was a show. This like the shoegazer thing in the '80s. I could maybe I'd like the songs, but I felt somehow like I was being cheated. The performers would have to kill themselves on stage every night, and for me to be like impressed. And so unquestionably, that's that precedent. That's how I envision it. I want to see a show. And then the second thing is, what would I want to see if Ed Hamell walked in and sees something? What does he need? Well, he's got maybe some flashy guitar, but not too much. I don't want Steve Vai necessarily. And then I want to get some real genuine insight to the guy. But then I don't want too much righteousness because I'm skeptical of that. So a couple of dirty jokes thrown in, help. A little bit of sugar helps the medicine go down. And then you can do some poignant stuff maybe that you might not otherwise be able to do. There's a great Bono joke, or I don't know if it's a joke. I think it might have really happened. He said every time he clapped his hands, and he said every time I clap my hands, a child in Africa dies. And somebody yelled in from the audience, "Well, stop clapping your hands." But I don't know that. A lot of times, even when I'm writing a record, I might say I find parameters like schedules and restricted financial parameters, deadlines. I find that stuff inspiring. I don't find it inhibiting at all. You got to get this done in a week. It's going to get done, and it'll be cool. You give me too much time, and it never gets done. Or the budget's too big, and all of a sudden you got like dancing camels. I got $100,000. I've always wanted dancing camels. But if you only have $15, you might do a flip book, and it might be infinitely cooler. So it's always pacing, I think. I really articulate it until just this moment, but, I'm thinking show. Make show. Sometimes you might see me in a punk rock club, and, he's the really loud, sweaty guy, and then you see me at a home concert, and you go, oh, that was very intimate. After doing it this long and being this old, I really do it to please myself, So what, like I'm having fun here. I'm going to have fun because life's short. When I walk in and I see all this stuff, I go, I could make this fun. Let's make this fun, So you may see me on a night where, particularly, for instance, because I used to, at the beginning, a lot of middle slots. Like everybody's Americana now, but back then they were all grunge bands. And there was always a grunge band opening and a grunge band at the end. And they'd be very melodic, so I may, just to even the whole night, pacing the whole night, not even just my set, but how do I pace this night? You've heard so much music. How do I differentiate myself from these guys? I'll be really wordy. The good news is the young kids, the hip-hop kids, they really dig, they kind of dig it. Like, before it used to be, where's the melody line? And you got too many words. Now the kids are like, oh, this guy's awesome. He's got a lot of words, It's kind of, my time has come. I had a very interesting relationship with my father, who was a brilliant, it's important to preface this. My father was brilliant. And he was brutally honest. But my dad had grown up during the Depression. This is true. I mean, I should also preface it by saying I had a very stable, safe growing up. Middle class. My dad worked at Carrier, was head of tool and design. What he did, that was when Carrier Air Conditioning had the air conditioners in, the planes and the boats and the war effort. So it was a very lucrative, this was in upstate New York, was very productive, and there was manufacturing in this country like there isn't really anymore. And what he was a buyer for things that were not internally manufactured. So if they needed a widget, there's these small New England firms. So the point being is he dealt with a lot of salesmen, there was a lot of socializing, there was a lot of alcohol, and a lot of jokes. I get a lot of my humor from my dad. But I didn't see my father much. I've spent probably more time with my son in the last 48 hours than 10 years of my dad's. But, he provided a home for me that I can't really provide for my son currently. Whatever. But here was the thing. Today we went to my son and I went to the Woody Guthrie thing. I read his words on the wall and I started to tear up. I didn't anticipate it. I was curious if fatigue was playing a factor, variable in that. I was very moved by his words, particularly in light of, how tough it is in the country right now. I think everybody's pretending they're middle class, but they're not really. I mean, a lot of people aren't. They act middle class, they talk middle class, they drive middle class, but the reality is they live month to month, So I was very moved. But as a kid, my first hero was Thomas Edison because he had invented stuff that outlived him. I had a real weird immortality, a real understanding. At a very young age, 7, 8, I understood mortality, and I desperately wanted immortality. And I knew that Thomas Edison had achieved that. Young, I was 8 or 9. I don't know. I think back on it now. And then I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, and I was 10. I would have been 10 or 9. And even then, I remember looking at Ringo and going, he is having a ball. And this stuff is going to last. I had a real I was very cognizant of it, that these guys are having great, but they're making art, and this is going to last. And I wanted to, I'm looking to, I do it, in many respects, and, an infinitely more realistic thing is I painted myself, and there's nothing else I could possibly do at this age to make the money that I make doing this. So I have to do this. But the good news is I love doing this and everything else. I mean, I'm very confident in what I do. I feel very proud of what I do. I work very hard at what I do. But there's nothing. Everything else I do half-assed because all I care about is this, So the moxie really is, I'm just looking to, 50 years from now, people are going to dig this stuff up and go, oh my God, what in God's name was this? That's really what it is. I surround myself with the people that inspire me. So, the Woody Guthries and the Jimmy Rogers and the Hank Williams, they do. And then the English Invasion 1 and 2 did. And then, punk rock did. And also Bukowski does and Kerouac does and maybe James Joyce does. I mean, so all that. Yes. There's nobody that's overtly, you don't look at me, some performers you look and they go, oh, he's a Dylan freak. Dylan is, Warren Zevon is a huge influence on me, but you don't hear any Warren Zevon. Skip James would be the guy. Skip James is my guy. But I'm of that. There's always one, Howlin' Wolf is my guy. If I have to go to for the blues or whatever. But no, I don't. But I'll take a little bit, like I'll hear something. Oh, that's cool, and then I'll steal it, and then I'll more, I lived in if I lived in 4 cities and I was to distill those cities to one sentence. When I lived in Syracuse, where I grew up, and I played in an all-original band, I wrote all the songs for it. But their attitude, if I was to distill it to one sentence, that sentence would be, well, you don't think you're going to make it, do you? When I went solo in Syracuse, they were not going to embrace me as a solo. They had seen me in a band. We drew 200 or 300 people, so they didn't want to see me solo. And then I moved to Albany, and it was a petri dish. I really, in very much isolation, I could try a bunch of different things, tell jokes, even card tricks. I mean, I tried everything. I got this little, every Wednesday night at a place called the Half Moon Cafe. And I lived for that gig. And if I got 20 people, it was a big night. I mean, pass the hat, you'd make $30-$40, but really worked that show. In Albany, my ex-wife did her undergraduate work at the University of Albany. It was a cool town. It was my joke was you could spin a cat by his tail and you knock out 7 poets. It's a very poet, but they didn't have much time for music. Albany's sentence was, "Oh, you're very good, but we're kind of busy right now studying." Everybody was in college, you're good, but then when I moved to Austin, their sentence was, "Where you been?" They were very embracing. I love Austin because they have a real love of the old, and they love the old guys, but they're very embracing of the young guys. They loved me. It was awesome, and I loved them. It was a very mutual thing. And then when I moved to New York, it was let's make some money. That was their thing, because I had gotten signed to a major in Austin when I did the thing. So all the learning years, the developing years, making a lot of mistakes, and picking and choosing the stuff was in Albany. And then by the time I got to, and then the Electric Lounge, I knew if I could get a steady gig there because they had poets and film early on in the night, and they had grunge bands, and I knew if I get that middle slot, then the spoken word people in Austin, they really took to me. And the rock guys really took to me because they didn't find me threatening, probably. And that's how I got signed, really. I think there's a couple things. One, Patti Smith talks about Patti Smith, she wanted to be like a painter, but rock and roll was so miserable that she sort of created that first record, Horses, to fill a void that necessity is the mother of invention to some extent. And I love rock and roll, but there's not a lot now that, and it's not because I'm old and blah, blah. I'm good friends with Aesop Rock. He's an underground rapper, and we went to see his show at Irving Plaza. It was phenomenal. Very inspiring, I don't know. I still got my dreams, I still want to, and my dreams are very, I think, realistic. I would love to play, small black box theater to 300 to 500 people at a $30 ticket 150 times a year. I mean, that doesn't seem like it's pie in the sky, It seems like it should be realistic. So I keep working, this record's going to be better than the last one. And eventually, I think people are going to catch on, or I'm going to die and he's going to get my publishing and, he'll buy a house like this, Ireland's hysterical because Ireland, they're 12 to 70, 80. It's amazing in Ireland how huge it is. Over in England, it's probably 35 to 70. But here, so Aesop Rock had a band with Kimya Dawson, who wrote the soundtrack to Juno, and she was in the band Moldy Peaches. And they chose me to tour with them 2 years ago, and it was a very young crowd. It was like 13. That's Kimya's audience. His is like 35 at the oldest, and it was great. I mean, it was great. It was real young. It was real cool. The kids, they don't too many. I used to hear that. You got too many words. The kids, they love the words. The more, the merrier. So, I don't know. I don't know what it's gonna. I hope something breaks it. I mean, I'm not gonna write a hit record. I don't even know if that exists anymore. Really, I don't know. It could be anything, I mean, really. I mean, you see sometimes parents bring their kids out. That's cool. Kids really dig it because I'm irreverent and I say the F word, but also politically, I think a lot of young kids, look at how Bernie, resonated with youth, So I think a lot of young kids dig, politically where I'm at. I wonder, Bukowski has a line about thank God. I don't know what the poem is. I don't know what the quote is exactly, so I'm paraphrasing, but something to the effect of thank God the gods shined on me by not making me famous early. I have a lot of friends that got a certain level of success, a comfortable level of success. I'll tell you, a few years ago, well, it had to be more like 6 or 7. So the Iraq War, it was second Bush administration, and in the summertime, June, July, and August. This is before he could tour with me. He started touring with me when he was 8, but I was married, and I would have huge gaping holes in my schedule June, July, and August. And I went to my agent, who was a great guy, and I said, "Hey, what's up with this?" And he said, "Well, for a folk musician, there's a lot of festivals, and there's children and grandmothers, and your stuff's inappropriate." And I said, "Well, I could do a G-rated show, and I think people would understand what I do." And he said, "Well, look, there's a thing called the Folk Alliance. Lewis Black from Austin heads this up, and they take over a hotel. They like 300 folk acts, and it could be anything from rockabilly to Scottish bagpipes to clog dancing. I saw a lot of Ani DeFranco wannabes and blah, 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 blah. And that you rent a room. If you get accepted, certain performers would get showcased in the ballroom. I was one of them. And whatever. So I'm walking around the halls, and there are 300. I'm listening to this one, listening to that. I'm not hearing anything political. The Iraq War is going on. This is the folk community, for God's sakes. So I play the ballroom, and it's sold out. Like, it's mobbed. And then afterwards, I got like a couple festivals. I said, "What happened?" They said, "Well, my agent, you're doing the political stuff." And I said, "Well, it's the folk community. Why aren't they talking about the war? Why aren't they enraged? We're killing innocent people." Trump even says now the Iraq War was a mistake. Well, all your supporters that supported George Bush, how can we resurrect the dead people that we mistakenly killed, according to you Republicans? But anyway, I said, "Why aren't they singing about this?" And my agent says, "Well, Ed, they're making 100, and he's fun. I mean, he knew he's funny. He's not, he knows it's wrong. He used to manage Tom Paxton, for God's sakes. But he says, Ed, they're making $120,000 a year. You think they're going to jeopardize that?" I got to look myself in the mirror, man. I mean, I have to, I got to look myself in the mirror. I have to have my integrity. You have to have your integrity, or the small fouling that I have, they're going to smell. Everybody I've mentioned as an influence has their integrity. And when I sense you don't have it, I run for the hills. Well, I think that I appreciate my happiness more. I know how fleeting. I think I might have taken my happiness for granted before, but I know how fleeting it could be. I do everything. I'm here, it's been a great tour, him and I. He said to me earlier today, this may be the best tour ever, unquestionably in terms of variety. We did an outdoor barbecue with a kind of a famous tattoo guy yesterday. Oliver Peck has a TV show. Did 2 the day before, one in Denton, one in Dallas. One was one was a listening room club date. It was great. It was a punk rock bar in the evening. And, that's the one thing. I can do anything. I'm not a big loud band, so I could do a house concert. But I can do a punk rock club because I can be really loud, So no, I haven't. Matter of fact, if anything, I work more now than I've ever worked. But I can make a living. In 4 years, he's going to have to go to college. So I don't have a lot of superfluous money, that's for darn sure. I got a solid base. I mean, if I broke my wrist, I'd be screwed. If I got, cancer, I'd be screwed, I guess. But so I paint as well. Because no one, and the painting thing came about very organically but out of a need because no one buys CDs anymore. And so, and I didn't do this consciously, but the lack of being able to sell CDs has made this painting thing happen. It's the painting thing. I probably make as much money painting as I do playing music. However, I haven't. It's to fans. It's to who are now becoming collectors. I haven't broken into the gallery audience or anything like that. Some come really quick, some really, really fast, and then other ones, that right and try my ideas in my phone about the song, and then playing it out